I started attending a church near my house to find a girlfriend who shared my values. I'm 25 years old and have only had 2 serious relationships that lasted more than a year. I had other short-lived relationships with women who claimed to be one thing but turned out to be something else. That's why I believed that at church I'd find a decent girlfriend. I've never been religious, never one to strictly attend services. But after so much advice from friends and family, I started going to church on Wednesdays and Saturdays, when they held the famous youth gatherings. These youth events were specifically aimed at bringing young people closer to God and forming couples with similar values. After a month, I had already made friends with many people my age and participated in several activities. One thing I started to notice was that while about 90% of the guys seemed to have little or no experience with relationships, many even appeared to be virgins, the majority of the women were clearly very experienced, both from their appearance and from the conversations they had among themselves. I started looking into these so-called honorable girls and was shocked. Not even at the nightclubs I used to go to did I see women with such messed-up pasts. There was a 22-year-old woman named Andrea who already had 3 kids. She had been married twice and was even interested in me. Then there was this woman named Beth, who was 26 years old. She gave a testimony saying she had been addicted to sex, had prostituted herself, and when she talked about it, it seemed like she was more proud than ashamed. There were several women, ranging from 19 to 30 years old, desperate to find some gullible guy to marry, and despite their pasts, they were extremely demanding. Sex only after marriage, as they themselves would say. The funny thing was that their behavior, lusting after men who were already taken and making constant sexual remarks, was considered normal. I quickly realized that I wasn't going to find what I was looking for there, but I liked the services and kept attending church. Remember that woman I mentioned, Andrea? Well, she started cornering me at the church entrance. I was very direct with her and said, "Look, I'm really not interested in you. I'm very reserved and I'm looking for someone who fits my profile. Few relationships, educated, and without kids." As soon as I finished talking, she started crying and ran back inside the church. I felt really uncomfortable and left. On Wednesday, it was service day. When I got to church, the pastor called me aside to talk and said that Andrea had spoken to him. He gave me a lecture and said, "Young man, you're at the age to get married. Don't let the sins of the world take over you. Andrea is a wonderful person, and forgiveness must be given to be received." He said that the past doesn't matter, only the life that you'll lead from now on. At first I felt bad because I lied and said that I didn't like her, and it wasn't even about her past. It was just because I didn't feel anything for her. I thought the pastor would leave me alone after that. But I was very wrong. After that, he started introducing me to a different woman at the end of every service. And get this, they were always women with kids, already worn out, who had extremely promiscuous pasts. He would say, "Look at the women in this congregation. They're a blessing, and you should be grateful to marry one of them." I remember that at the last youth gathering I went to, the pastor called everyone together. There were about 40 people. We all sat in a circle on the floor, and the pastor said, "Today, couples will form, and they will be a blessing." The eyes of the Micah Beta guys lit up as he called them one by one and paired them with these so-called honorable women. I thought he'd leave me out, but he called me too, and that day I knew I'd be kicked out of the church. He called me up, and also called this woman who was about 25 but looked 40. She had cheated on her husband with her brother-in-law and was clearly looking for some sucker to marry, a Micah. He put my hand in hers and said, "Go over there in the corner and talk. You two need to work things out." Right away, I let go of her hand and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "With all due respect, my brothers and sisters, I have faith in God, and what God has prepared for me, after all my efforts and struggles, cannot be someone who didn't guard herself, didn't respect herself or others." I said, "I believe that everyone can repent for their past and sins, but here all I see are women who, after living it up outside the church, now want to settle down with a good guy and get married. I don't think that's fair." The pastor got very angry and asked me to leave, and I never went back to that church. Of course, there were decent women in that church too, but those were already taken. Unfortunately, many churches are used by women who lived their whole lives recklessly, and then want to hit the reset button and find themselves a Micah, who often will still have to deal with infidelity when they marry these so-called honorable women. Later, I found out that this pastor, who was married, had actually hooked up with several of those honorable women from the church, and whenever a new woman showed up, if she gave him the slightest opening, he'd go for it. That only made me distance myself even more from churches and focus on my spiritual life at home. Through that, I learned that no matter the place, there will always be cunning women looking for innocent, naive guys who can provide them with a good life. And here's the thing. When they were at the peak of their beauty, none of these women would have even looked at those guys.